Always the challenge in designing a new car is capturing that first sketch from the designers, because in the first sketch you always get the emotion and character, and then of course you have to deliver that, the proportion, the character, the feeling of the sketch into an actual feasible property that then we can deliver to the customer. So for me, it's always a case of coming back to those first sketches, really checking ourselves that we're delivering that beautiful product, which for the C40, I think we really did. Typically, a full program from start is normally 3 to 4 years, but because this is based on the XC40 in terms of the underpinnings of the car, it was actually quicker. So it's more about a year and a half from that first initial drawings all the way into production car. There's a few elements to the C40. I think first, of course, is the silhouette, which is this more dynamic, sleek profile that really delivers on the benefits of an SUV, the kind of easy ingress, high eye point, and the utility element, but it's much more dynamic and sleek. So for me, the profile is the key element to the C40, but also the rear lights and that whole rear execution is a very fresh and very iconic as well to Volvo with the vertical lights. And then there's a second part to it, which is probably the front face, because there we have done a new full electric integrated grille, and we've done an even more modern take on the Thor's hammer, and also cleaned up and modernized the front lower part of the car. There's a few fundamental parts to design an electric car. Obviously, there's the front identity. We don't longer need that open grille to cool the combustion engine. So that immediately gives an identity to an electric car. We've also got the kind of element of aerodynamics, and hence why we've done a sleeker roof profile to get an even better aerodynamics. And that's played out on the wheels as well, with the aero wheels that we offer with this car. And generally it's this kind of clean, modern design language which really suits the Volvo brand anyway, but taking into account these elements of the electric face, the sleeker profile, and more aerodynamics, certainly in things like the wheels and that rear profile. Sustainability, of course, electrification is part of the sustainability journey, and this is a full electric car. But the materials inside the car is another key element. And we've actually used PET bottles, which is the plastic recycled bottles, and we've used 97% of that for the carpets, the side of the console, the door inserts, and we also use it in the headlining parcel shelf. So there's a huge element of the area throughout the car, which is the recycled PET bottles. We've also, this is a completely leather-free car, so we've also used these sustainable materials in the seats and in the deco material as well. So in the seats we have a recycled polyester mixed into the vinyl, and this velour soft texture in the centre of the seat. We have a vinyl steering wheel, for instance, and also the trimmed elements throughout the car in vinyl. So we're using a lot of recycled materials. We also will offer a wool blend seat, so we're using natural materials as well, which is also a key element of sustainability. So we're really on a good journey now into this really confident, sustainable message with the Volvo products. I mean, our whole philosophy here at Volvo is designing for people, human-centric design, and their lifestyle, and fitting into their lifestyle. And what we're finding from our customers is they really appreciate this high seating position, the high eye point, easy ingress, egress, but also the utility element of the SUVs. So we provide all this with the C40, I think the difference compared to an XC40 is the XC40 really is for that, maybe the full family going away for a weekend packed with lots of equipment and kit in the back. I think the C40 actually provides a similar experience, but not as much utility. And that suits some people. I think if you're maybe a couple going golfing for a weekend or something, it fits you perfectly. I mean, you've got enough good space in the car, but of course it provides you with that nice, sleek, dynamic profile and an even more modern look than the XC40. As a design studio, we're working on the next generation. We work 4 or 5 years ahead of where we are at this point in time. Plus, also we look at concepts into the future. We have a very strong strategy of full electrification, so we're working hard on providing these new types of vehicles with a new proportion and a new design language. And yeah, hopefully you're going to see all this work coming out soon that you can have a look at and hopefully appreciate. We always look back at our heritage line and our DNA, and I think that's very important when you have such a strong heritage going back to 1927. The car that really stuck out for us was the P1800, and the reason for that, it was an emotional piece of design. It had the characters that you expect from a Volvo, but it had a lot of really interesting design elements and sculpture, great proportions, a really interesting product. And we basically picked up on that as our influence, and that influenced the concept cars that we launched in 2014. And we did 3 concept cars that ultimately influenced then the design language of this current generation that we have on the road today. And still, I mean, going forward in time, I think it will still always be an influence with even our next generation. But of course, we also look at some of the other cars in our heritage, just to get the kind of the key lines and philosophy of the heritage of the brand into the next generation of cars. The important thing when you look at your heritage is not to just take a car and do a modern version of a retro car, because it needs to be meaningful to and relevant as well to our next generation of customers. Their needs are different, their taste is different, but what they appreciate is us picking up on certain red threads or key iconic elements from the heritage and then executing that in a modern way. For example, the vertical lights of a lot of our heritage cars plays up as a strong identity in our next generation of cars. The Thor's hammer lights is something that people now really recognise as an iconic element. So there's things like that that we'll take into the future, and maybe a couple of key lines as well. For instance, on the C40 here, you actually see a line from the P1800 that comes from the rear light horizontally across the rear quarter and then up into the side daylight opening line. And that is one line that we've taken from the P1800. So it doesn't come across as a retro car at all, but there's just a couple of lines in there that really relate to our heritage.